All right, we are live for another Travel Tip Tuesday. And today, my guest is Kayla Reid, and she has her own YouTube channel and Instagram with the
You're
Wanderful
frozen.
Life of Kayla.
Of course, we would freeze right when we go live, right?
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. You know, we're dealing with COVID internet. It's all right.
Well, hello.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Kayla. I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. So I think it's going to be a really great topic that we're talking about today. For those of you who are watching, we are going to be talking about traveling while working full time. And both me and Kayla travel while working full time, and we both believe that it is something that can really be done by anybody, and that more people should be doing it. And that I think a lot of people, especially here in America, like we let it restrict us. Like we're just like, oh well, I gotta work and work and like maybe if I'll have vacation, but they just like let it they just like wait too long and then it never happens. They're like, oh yeah, I'll do that next year, and then they never do it.
I think it's kind of that sense of like working for the American dream. You know what I mean? Like, I also think that a lot of people just don't prioritize vacations, but I also think we vacation very different here in the US too. So the way that we think of a vacation, where like the mindset in Europe is very different than it is here in America.
Yes, it really is. And, I think a lot of people don't understand that because a lot of Americans actually have never been to Europe. So they've never like experienced that cultural difference. But before we get really into the nitty gritty details, I want you to tell people about you. Tell us about where you're from, where you're at right now, a little bit about how you got into travel.
All right. So hello, everybody. My name is Kayla. I am a full-time registered nurse who is trying to see the world in my home state of Michigan between my 12-hour shifts. So I started traveling, like really traveling, when I was about 21. I took my first solo trip over to Europe and I pretty much fell in love, and I've been doing it ever since. I kind of started my YouTube randomly just to kind of put little travel montages together for all my friends, because I would go on all these.
Oh, we might have froze just a little bit here. Oh, there you go.
Back.
All right.
All right.
Did it for your
Where did I leave off? No, now you're frozen.
You got it? Am I unfrozen now?
Oh, back?
Back?
Can you hear me?
You hear me now?
Yeah, right?
I think it stopped off at the you started doing it for your friends.
Yeah, so I started just kind of putting together videos for my friends and family just to show them kind of what I've gotten up to. And then it kind of evolved into, well, how do you travel? How can you afford to travel, but you work? So it kind of evolved more into me kind of vlogging how I do things like step by step, how you can find, good budget travel, stuff like that. And it's kind of just evolved. And I've kind of really been this advocate where in a sea of YouTubers where you have like these people who are quitting their jobs to travel the world, or all these like travel couples that are doing the same thing, I want to kind of break the mold and show people that you don't have to quit your job to travel. I mean, I'm living proof. I work full time and I still find time to travel. It's just all about prioritizing what you want to do in life. And for me, that's travel. So.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, I do the same thing. I just got back from that big trip that I had and everything, which we talked about. And those of you who are on my page know that I was doing. So I think it's really important that people understand that I think the only thing holding them back is themselves. And like you said, prioritizing, just making your priorities. So you said that it's funny you said you started off just doing it for your friends, because I did the exact same thing. I literally just created I was like, I did my Europe trip in 2018 and I was like, oh, do you guys want to like see it? Like,
yeah.
I didn't want to flood my Facebook page. So I was like, let me just make my own.
The only reason why I started YouTube is I was trying to upload it to Facebook and I kept getting like a copyright because of the song. So I would just put like all these like clips together to some random song. and Facebook wouldn't let me upload. So I was like, how can I upload this and still share it? So that's kind of how YouTube started. It was never supposed to be anything, big. And then I started getting subscribers and I was like, oh, people enjoy watching me.
Yeah, no, it's so funny. I think that the journey of like a YouTuber is so different for everybody, but almost at the same time, like we all started for some reason or another. And it really just, it continues. It looks like you froze a little.
I can hear you.
We're just gonna roll with the punches with that. I'm trying to see if it does the thing on live. But anyway, so yeah, I think that really just, how our journeys start, like, doesn't really matter, but it's all about like the content that we're putting out there. And we get a lot of our content from the people who ask us those questions, because I have the same people asking me those questions. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess people are interested in this. Like, this is what people want to know. And then you want to help them because it's so it's really funny. But go ahead and, so how many countries have you actually been to? I want you to share that.
I have been to over 30. I think it's either 31, 32. I have kind of lost count because like early on in my travel, there's been a couple countries that I just never documented. So it's around 30. I did hit over 30 this past fall. So
very exciting. Yeah. What's your favorite? I know this is like the worst question in the world because I hate when people ask me, but I have to ask. You can give me top 3.
I hate that question because honestly, so every country is special for its own reasons, whether you're going through something in that time and something can really resonate with you. But I have like several that are really, really important to me for very important reasons. Italy is one of like my top countries. And I don't know if it's because like when I've been to Italy 3 times. And every time I go, it like pulls at my heartstrings. There's something about Rome that I just resonate with, and I absolutely love it. I love Iceland because that was my first like solo trip that I did by myself. And the scenery is just unreal in Iceland. Like you can't even describe how like beautiful it is. And then I really loved Peru. Peru is a country that like, when you think of Peru, you just think of Machu Picchu. And it is so much more than that. I spent 3 weeks there, and honestly, there are so many amazing cities within Peru that I think most people don't even realize exist. And they're very, very different. And then I really loved Vietnam. I went to Vietnam with Flying the Nest here on YouTube, and I traveled with them for like 10 days, and it was absolutely wonderful. Like the people of Vietnam are just so kind-hearted and just so nice. And I've never been to a country where like literally every person that you meet is like so nice. But honestly, I really haven't. Like, you go to countries and people are nice, but I literally did not meet somebody in Vietnam that was like rude. So, and we loved Americans.
Wow, that's cool. That's very interesting. And I think that a lot of the places, no matter where I go, I learned something that I would have never guessed. And I think that that's one of my favorite things about traveling is I always have this, we all have these ideas of these places. We're like, oh, this is like what this is supposed to be. And then like you go there and you're like, what the heck is this? like this is crazy. Like it exceeds your expectations. And I saw that so much just on my trip that I did out west. But I love that like Iceland is number 1 like on my list right now. Like that is like when it opens up, like Lucie's gonna be there.
I went to Iceland just as it was getting like super popular. And I am so glad I went when I did. I went in the wintertime, so I was able to see like the northern lights. It was absolutely beautiful. Like it was probably a dream trip. And I met some really great people in Iceland, and we traveled Canada together. Like you just meet some really cool people when you travel. honestly. Like, we become some of my best friends. And I mean, Shreya, who is in a lot of my travel vlogs, we met in Vietnam a year and a half ago, and we've become best friends. And we've traveled to 1, 2, 3, 5 countries now.
That's
and
amazing.
Also, we just meet some really cool people along the travel. You really do.
That's my so there's like 3 things that are my favorite thing about seeing new places. Like I love seeing new landscapes and like the views. I love food. And I love meeting food. I like food. And then the third, well, and this is no particular order, but meeting people. It is crazy how you can connect with someone just because you're like visiting the same place. Like the travelers can, like the way that travelers connect when going to other countries and such, it's incredible. Yeah. Like, you can't even describe it. I met people on a hike in Ireland. They were from Germany and they invited me to like their family home. And they're like, yeah, come join us for a weekend, like a month later. Like, cause it was just like, that doesn't really happen. I feel like in a normal day, like if I just meet someone on the street, I'm like, hey, come over to my house. Like,
yeah. It's something that I think travelers just, when you're traveling and you meet another traveler, I think it's something that we all kind of same characteristic, we just want to meet other people. And I think that's why a lot of people travel, right? Is to, immerse themselves in a new culture. And I think it's also a great way to kind of break those stigmas of who the other person is. I know Americans have quite a stigma around the world. And I feel like every time I meet somebody, they're like, oh, you're not kind of what I would expect you to be. And I'm like, how would you expect me to be? Like, oh, well, you're an American. So I do think like, it's just kind of nice because you learn other cultures and you realize, we're not all,
so different. We're not different. And, I think that you can only read so much in a textbook. You can only read so much, like you get this idea from it. But once you actually go there, I know that I never cared about history. And when I went to Europe, like all of a sudden I was interested in history because it was like, I was there. Yeah. I'm like in the ruins in Greece. And I'm like, this is older than dirt, literally. Like, this is
yeah, right. Like going to the Acropolis, I was like, how? Like, I'm so baffled at how, or even like the Colosseum in Rome, I'm like, how did they create this? Like hundreds of years ago.
Insane.
With
and then like,
no
they're
help.
Like, literally,
it just baffles my mind,
And they tell you how they make it and you're like, what? Like these people, oh, did I freeze?
No, yeah, you're back now.
Okay. And they tell you how they make it and they're like, oh yeah, like they just took these huge slabs and they just put it down. Like, what? Okay. But yeah, I think that travel is very important and that a lot of Americans can benefit from it. And a lot of Americans don't end up traveling because, I feel like there's a barrier in the sense that they think it's too difficult or that, going to Europe, that it's dangerous or that, they're not sure where they're going to go. And one of the things I had someone recently ask me and they were like, so how do you find all these places that you go to? Like, how do you go to Greece or go to, France? And how do you find what you're going to do? And I was like, well, how do you find what you're going to do when you go to like a new state or like if you go visit New York, like you Google it. Like we're not, we're not in 20 years ago where you have to buy like a travel book and like a map and, figure it out. Like you literally have the worldwide internet at your fingertips.
It's true. But I think here in America, we travel very different. Like I said earlier, if you think about it, like majority of Americans have never been to Europe.
Yes, correct.
And I know growing up, just how we would travel growing up, we didn't do large, extensive vacations. I didn't leave the country until I was like in my 20s, So I think the way that we travel here is very different. And, with the whole COVID thing, when they were like, oh, well, Europe's not accepting any Americans, I'm like, but that doesn't really affect most Americans who travel because I think a lot of them, they just like to go to the all-inclusive. And especially here in the Midwest, it gets super cold. Okay. We have really cold, long winters. So majority of us here in the Midwest, we like to go down south and we like to go to Mexico. And I think a lot of people are like, well, if I'm going to go travel, I want to sit on the beach. I want to drink. I want to eat. So I think people just travel very differently here. I think it's looked at very differently. So
I think it's a comfort level too, because they're more comfortable with going somewhere closer, like the Bahamas or Mexico or Canada, because it's right there to them.
But it's all.
Oh, you froze. Technical difficulties. Oh, there you are. All right. So,
am I back?
You're back.
Okay. So I think a lot of it is that Americans get very uncomfortable in situations that they're not comfortable with. So when you're put in a situation where you don't know the language and you don't know, because, here, majority of the states here in the US don't have public transit. So being on a big metro system in Europe where you don't speak the language, where you don't understand the currency, you don't understand the mannerisms, that can be very daunting for a lot of people. And I know, like, the first time I traveled when I was in Paris, I was very overwhelmed. And I think if you're not used to that and you're put in a situation that makes you uncomfortable, it can hinder the experience. And I think that a lot of Americans just don't like to put themselves in situations where they're going to be uncomfortable.
Yep, that's true. But a lot of people don't understand how things work over there, though, in the regards to transportation, and how a lot of people speak English over there. Like, if you just ask someone for something, like, you're usually able to get something. Granted, it is different, but like, especially if you're from the Northeast and you're used to using the train systems in the Northeast, like, it's very comparable over there, except it's more expansive. You can literally get anywhere via public transportation, which is huge to get over in the mindset of an American, because we think that we have to rent a car to, like, go somewhere. Like, we go somewhere, we have to rent a car, or we have to bring our own car, and
we drive everywhere. Like, we drive everywhere. The way it is, we road trip, we drive. I just remember, like, younger, we're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna drive up north. No big deal. 5 hours, no biggie. But like, we don't view trains in the same way. But I also think our train system is not set up.
Oh no.
Travel. I mean, I did a train travel in Canada, and I mean, it wasn't the best experience. I mean, it's definitely not like the train systems over in Europe at all, So I think just train travel in general here in North America is just nothing like it is in Europe. So it can be kind of, daunting to somebody who's never done it. So
absolutely. Well, I want to get into some tips about, how we actually travel when it comes to working full time, because you have a very specific schedule of being a nurse.
Yes.
But I know that you relate that especially in your videos on your YouTube channel and everything, to people with a normal schedule. So let's talk a little bit about how, working full time isn't something to stop you from actually traveling, and like what that kind of looks like. Let's talk about what your schedule looks like, and then kind of go from there.
So I work 3 12-hour shifts a week. I have pretty good control over where I work and how I decide to work those 12 hours. So if I'm planning a vacation, a lot of times I do quite a lot of long weekends. So if I stack my 3 days at the beginning of the week, and then at the end of the week and the other week, like my 2 weeks, I can usually get about a week off. So I do quite a lot of long weekends. And if I do take vacation time, a lot of times I can kind of stack my days again to create, 2-3 weeks and only take a couple vacation days. So I have quite a lot of flexibility with my schedule, which I know a lot of people do not, but I still try to be relatable in the fact that, like, hey, like, I still work. So what you see on my YouTube channel is probably only 10% of my life. Like, my life is pretty boring here in Michigan, especially since COVID. Honestly, like, I've been working quite a lot. I've been working a lot of overtime. So, I mean, I do work full time. My life is not all fun and adventures like my YouTube and my Instagram may prove otherwise, but I'm good at faking.
we would like to be out every week somewhere new.
I mean, if I showed my everyday life, it'd be very boring.
Be like, me and the cat again. That's me too.
Right?
Literally, the amount of work that I do too is the same. I get it.
But I do try to stack my adventures and my trips. So if I'm gonna go on a long weekend, so with COVID, I've been doing quite a lot of Michigan travel. I've been focusing a lot on showing people, like, just because COVID is here and it's not going anywhere and it's ruined a lot of our travel plans. I know I had a lot of plans for 2020 and none of them have panned out like I thought they would. But I've been kind of showing people that, like, and encouraging people to still get out there. Like, I've really reconnected with my home state, and I've done quite a lot of like day trips and a lot of adventures to places that I've never been. And then I just realized, I'm like, oh my God, like, I have some really cool things in my backyard. And I think and what people don't realize is that you don't need to go on a plane for 15 hours to a faraway land to travel.
Exactly.
Well, I've kind of also shifted the focus on, like, listen, like, you can still take long weekends and explore a new area in your state, or, do something in your free time. You don't have to, have all this vacation time to travel.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's actually how I just had that huge trip that I took for 2 weeks. But before that, I haven't had any, the longest vacation that I've had was like 4 or 5 days, which was an extended weekend for the last 2 years. So I've been living off of, before that trip, I had been living off of just those extended weekend trips. And I think that it's very easy to get a plane ticket on, maybe if you do have a job where you get, how I do it, if you have a job that gives you paid time off or whatever on a holiday or something, so you have like a holiday weekend, then you can, add a Friday onto that and make it like a 4-day weekend, rather, take 1 day. And that's a way to get like a little bit of time somewhere, whether you're going locally, like you said, to different places in your state, which every state has somewhere to explore, or even maybe to the next neighboring state. Like, I'm in Florida, so it takes me 8 hours to get out of Florida. But most states aren't like Florida.
Well, I'm situated in Metro Detroit, so I'm pretty south in Michigan. So I don't know if anybody's familiar. Michigan looks like your hand. So Michiganders are always like, we live right here. That's classic. I live right here. So I live pretty far south. So in order to get like all the way up in the Upper Peninsula, that takes 8-9 hours. And that's, so most people don't get up there very often.
Yeah.
But, I've also wanted to travel quite a bit in the US as well. And I've realized that I've really kind of shied away from that for a very long time. So, I just went to Minnesota.
Yeah,
never in my million years would I think that Minnesota would be on my bucket list. But let me tell you guys, Minnesota in the fall is beautiful. And I'm like editing some videos right now, and I'm like, oh man, like, I just never realized like how beautiful Minnesota is, And I think there's a lot of states that are like that we just don't realize can, be a great travel destination. And I know I've been a huge advocate for Michigan, because I do feel like a lot of people do not see Michigan as a travel destination, but you guys, we're surrounded by the Great Lakes. We have some amazing, amazing places. And I've really been advocating, to everybody, even people that live here in Michigan, like, dude, get out, travel, like, go to the beach, take that hour and a half and head to, Lake Huron. It doesn't take much, and you're still kind of getting away and getting yourself a little vacation out of it. So.
Absolutely. And, I think that just like we were talking about earlier with the different countries, I think everybody has an idea of what every state looks like. I know not that I know, but like when I went out on that West trip, I thought Wyoming was nothing. Like, I don't know. I thought it was I thought it was flat. And I get there and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, anything but it. And I mean, well, it had some flat parts, but it was like, and then Idaho was like 4 different states in one, practically. Like, I went through 4 different types of landscapes. It was like every single state that I went to surprised me. And I was like, wow, I would have never expected that this would be what I was going to experience. Of course, you know, I didn't know what I was walking into, but like, I think that everyone can value just from like going to the different states. I mean, I shied away from, like, I literally skipped over Georgia, you know, obviously Florida's, well, I guess I don't have as good of a hand reference for Florida.
The handle, it's like, right.
But, you know, so there's Georgia, right, just north of us. Yeah. And I skipped over. I've driven up to Pennsylvania and back so many times, and I was like never interested in going to Georgia. I was like, I'm not going to Georgia. I saw on Facebook, magical Facebook, an article that said waterfall, like the waterfall road trip you want to take in Georgia. I was like, ooh, road trip?
Waterfalls?
Waterfalls? Georgia? Okay. So I did it, and it was gorgeous. I was like, wow, I kind of like Georgia. Like, but you know, like, it was like, I would have never expected that there would be that many waterfalls in like a short distance. It was all like within 20, 30 minutes of each other in northern Georgia. Mm-hmm. Gorgeous. But you know, you don't know those things until you like go and do it.
Yeah, you know, and I think that's why Instagram has really like set the tone for travel too, because I've seen some photos and I'm like, where is that? Because I need to go. And I know there's been a lot of photos that I've posted too where people are like, what, where is that? And, you know, I tell people like this past winter or March, technically, I was in Bulgaria. And I remember when I didn't tell anybody I was going to Bulgaria. I wanted it to be kind of like a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
When I got home, everybody was like, why Bulgaria? And I'm like, why not?
Why not?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, it was this church, the Alexander Nevsky Church. I saw a photo of it and I was like, I need to go. And I added it onto my trip. I wasn't supposed to go to Bulgaria, but it just so happened I didn't book my airfare yet. And it was the same price to leave out of Bulgaria as it was to leave out of Turkey. So I was like, let's go to Bulgaria.
There you go. I mean, I think that that's how you find like those. I love traveling with like, you know, a little bit of a loose plan so that you can check out those different things, because I think you find so much. I love going to little places within those places, like not just like the major cities of countries. Like you have to go like actually explore the culture. And, you know, when I was supposed to be in Budapest in April, and obviously COVID, so that didn't happen. But I was going to go to Poland and everything, and people are like, "Why are you going to Hungary? Like, what's in Hungary?" I'm like, "Well, why not? Like, you know, I've already been to a lot of the other countries, but like, why wouldn't I go there?" And I've actually, Instagram has feeded into my travel, my need for travel, because it's like I'm on there and I see pictures and I have the exact same thought. And I remember seeing this one waterfall. I sound so basic. I'm like, yeah, waterfalls. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But I saw this one waterfall that was like magnificent. It looked like the great the Niagara Falls, but like huger. And I was like, what's going on here? And it's like in Argentina. And I was like, I'm going to go to Argentina. That's on my list now. That's like on my list now. So it's just crazy. I think that the community, the travel community, especially on the internet and on Instagram, I mean, we met on Instagram. So it's really cool just like to be able to connect with other people, see where other people have gone and what they've done. And I think that when you ask any traveler, like what their favorite country is or what the countries that really made an impact on them, it's never like, sometimes it's like those bigger countries that everybody talks about, but there's always like the ones that like stick out that nobody really talks about. Like one of my favorite countries is Scotland. Like I feel like Scotland is so underrated. Like people, you know, do not appreciate Scotland, and it was never on my list. And the only reason it was on my list was because of my best friend. And she's like, I want to go to Scotland. I was like, all right, fine.
I'm supposed to go to Scotland in May, so.
Yeah, it's the Highlands.
I know. I really want to do the Highlands, and I want to do the Isle of Skye. Like, there's so many things that it was part of my 2020 plan.
It's okay. There's many more years to come.
I mean, it's okay. I mean, I saved a lot of vacation time this year, so I guess it's okay.
COVID's changed a lot. You know, for better or for worse, COVID has changed the travel industry a ton. But I mean, like, I wouldn't even be doing this right now with you if it weren't for COVID. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's connecting people in a different way. And I think that, you know, travel is going to change a lot. The way it's going to be a lot safer in regards to like, and cleaner the way that we're traveling. And travel trends are changing. Now people are definitely exploring their countries more. Like even in Europe, like they're exploring their own countries more. And here in the US, we're exploring our country more. And a lot of people are realizing, wow, we have a lot to offer here. Because just like you were saying, you were kind of like, you know, oh, I want to go to all these like really cool exotic places. And then like you kind of discounted the US in a sense because it seemed closer, but we have like literally every type of landscape here. And I've always had it on my bucket list to do the all 50 states, but I definitely did the same thing. I went to Europe and like, I'm like, okay, I gotta go to Europe. Like I want to see these new countries. So it's just cool that I think people are getting a better appreciation for their country. And they're starting to explore more that's here, and that will create like now people are in nature more. I feel like people like were stuck in their homes, and people that might not have been as naturey before, like were stuck in their homes and were like, okay, I can't. Even introverts were like, nah, I can't be in my house for this long.
I mean, yeah.
And now they're like,
I can't be inside anymore.
So it's forcing everyone to get out, which is awesome because I know, you know, that you also appreciate it. And like, it's good to get out there and see these different places and experience nature, and like the RVing and the van life we were talking about very briefly, and like how that's changed as well.
Yeah. I know that I have really loved being able to get into the state parks, and I've done quite a lot of hiking this summer, which, you know, I love nature anyways. I'm into that. I'm a huge advocate for that. But and I've seen, you know, just driving around, like me and my friend Shreya were having a conversation about how, haven't you seen a lot of different license plates? And I'm like, yeah, I have. Like, and I think it's just people are just trying to get out there, and they're taking these road trips that they would have never taken before. I mean, I know when we drove up to the UP, there was a whole lot of people from everywhere in the US. So I think that people are exploring more, and they think being out in the open is safer. So I do think people are taking the precautions. Like they still want to get out there, they still want to travel, but they're taking those COVID precautions, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's another point too, is that people like being outside is a safer environment with what we're dealing with. So people are being outside more, which I don't think is bad necessarily.
No, I mean, I don't know. There's two sides to every, you know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have those people who think nobody should be out traveling, because I think that's also the reason why I kept the whole Minnesota trip kind of under wraps. I didn't tell anybody I was leaving because I didn't need anybody's, you know, opinions about me traveling. But my thing is, I'm like, well, you know, I'm a nurse. So if I didn't think it was safe to travel, I wouldn't be, you know.
Exactly.
I think as long as you take the appropriate precautions, and, you know, you're putting yourself in a situation where you're not being reckless, I think it's possible. So. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, I think that means even more coming from you as a nurse. So what type of, well, speaking of that, going into, was there anything in Minnesota that you saw that was different than what, like, that you think would have been different had you not gone during COVID, like before, pre-COVID? Was there anything like different?
I mean, you know, the whole mask, they have a mask mandate up there too. So here in Michigan, we have a mask mandate as well. We're still not fully open here in Michigan. And Minnesota, I think they finally just reopened. Don't mark my words on that. But I mean, they're able to go to restaurants and stuff. So, I mean, so you still have that limited capacity where nothing's really, you know, limited hours. Like I thought it was weird that like all their cafes closed at like 3-4 o'clock, which is very different than what it's like here in Michigan. I don't know if it's just a state thing. Cause I asked my friend, I was like, oh, that's weird. And she's like, I don't know. It must be because of COVID. So like, even there was some uncertainty, like, are they having limited hours? Like a lot of places, you know, you have to reserve a seat. Like we went out to dinner one night and we made reservations so that we could have a spot, and, you know, they're all outside seating. So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of different, I think things are different. It's not like normal life, you know. I think the further north we went though, outside of Minneapolis, when we went up the North Shore, it was a little bit more relaxed and relaxed. I mean, we still had the social distancing. There was still some like limited, you know, seating, a lot more outdoor seating. But I think up north, more people were out in the woods. Everybody was hiking. So, I mean, I know for us, we packed a lot of food. So then we just picnicked a lot. So, I mean, I would normally do that anyways. I mean, I did that up north.
Same.
So I'm trying to save money. It's also another reason how you can travel, which we can get into. But I don't know. I think a lot of other people were doing the same thing. And I don't know if that's more because of COVID or because of the area that you're in, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
I think that it comes from where there's heavily populated areas, there's going to be more restrictions. And as you get into territory where it's less populated, a lot of people aren't, like, they don't need to take the precautions as much because everybody's kind of already spaced out. Like that's kind of how it was in Idaho. When I was in Idaho, like, I'm in the middle of the fort, like, you know, going through some of these small towns, and it's like, you know, there's not that many people there. And in Kansas, like, there's not that many people.
You know, and then every state got hit differently. Like here in Michigan, we were one of the top states. We were the hot spot at the beginning. And because we have a major hub to Asia. So, because at first I was like, who's coming to Michigan? Like, who's coming to Detroit? That's causing Metro to Detroit to have, like, you know, a large COVID outbreak. At first I was so confused, but then it made sense. You know, we have a lot of straight flights to China, Japan, and South Korea. So, I mean, it made sense after you start thinking about it. So, I mean, we've been really restricted here in Michigan. And I know the second that our governor finally opened some things, we were flocking. I'm just telling you, like the first weekend out of lockdown, we'll use lockdown loosely because I mean we're still technically kind of in we're not open yet, but I know our state we had one of the most restricted lockdowns, and I know that the first week.
Might have. Let's see if it. Oh, you're back. I don't know if it's doing that on the thing. Go ahead.
So I just know that like the first weekend out of lockdown, the beaches on Lake Michigan were packed and people were just ready to get out there, ready to experience life. And I think if there's one thing that COVID has taught us is that, you know, we shouldn't be taking travel for granted. I know I've taken a lot of my travel for granted. The fact that I can travel, I can afford to travel. You know, I have a lot of these great adventures that I have to look back on. And I think for a while there, I was taking it for granted, and I will never take travel for granted again, ever.
And so you said earlier, I don't know if it was on the live or not, but would you consider yourself more introvert, extrovert, in the middle?
So I'm a extroverted introvert, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, in the middle.
I'm somebody who I'm very comfortable being alone. I live alone. I have a very small circle of friends that I consider close friends. You know, you have acquaintances and stuff like that, but I'm that person that like I'm comfortable with silence. So it can come off as if I'm like an introvert, which I guess in a sense I am. But like if you get me on a topic where I can talk, I can also be an extrovert. So it's like, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't know how it related to travel.
You know, I put myself out there when it's necessary. And then there's other days where I'm just like, I'm gonna stay at home, be an introvert, be alone. So I kind of like go back and forth. I mean, my friends will tell you I'm an extrovert, but
Oh, they will.
If you're first meeting me, I can come off probably a little rude, and it's not because like I'm being rude. It's just that I may not have a topic I want to talk about. I'm just one of those people where I have a personality that you love or you hate. And it's I can be very blunt in situations where I probably shouldn't be, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm a nurse and I don't sugarcoat some things. I have seen some stuff in life, so there's some things that I just don't sugarcoat, which can come off very, very rude and very bluntly. But hey, it is what it is.
I appreciate honesty. That's one of the things that like all the qualities my friends have. I was like, you would not be in my inner circle if you weren't honest to me. So like,
that's what I tell people. I'm like, you'll know if I like you. If I can leave you behind.
That's funny. No, I'm very similar. So I get that. No, I ask because I feel like, and sometimes we can have our blinders on. Or at least personally, I feel like sometimes like I think like, oh, I'm obviously very extroverted. Mm-hmm. So when I'm traveling, like, oh, I do this and this and this. And I feel like maybe the introvert who's watching me might be like, well, I'm not like you. I'm not extrovert. I can't just do that. So that's why I asked, because I didn't know like where you fell and how that related to it. You know what I mean? Because I have one of my best friends, all of my best friends are introverts. I don't know why. I have like a posse of introverts. But they like traveling too, and they find enjoyment of it too. So
I think introverts, I think traveling, you can travel if you're an introvert, if you're comfortable with yourself. I think, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of solo travel too, right? Because if you're not a comfortable person and comfortable in your own body and comfortable being in situations that make you uncomfortable, then travel won't be for you. Like I said, I'm an introvert, right? So I can travel alone. I can sit in a cafe, be perfectly fine by myself and not have to talk to anybody. I'm not necessarily the one that's going to spike up a conversation necessarily. Not saying that I haven't. So like, I think it just depends on the situation, right? So, I mean, I do consider myself an introvert, but like I said, an extroverted introvert. So I think being an introvert, I don't think that hinders travel in any way. I think you have to just be comfortable with yourself and be comfortable with any situation that you're putting yourself in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I didn't mean to say it like that, but I'm glad that you brought up the point of solo travel, because solo travel, I feel like is very important for anybody, not introvert, extrovert, whatever you might be. So solo travel is, I think, very important to finding yourself. Like if you feel lost, or if you feel like you haven't, like you don't really know what you like I feel like solo travel is just the perfect remedy for that, because I know I'm I'm always around people. And when I went on my first solo travel and last year to Portland, Oregon. And like, I was like, I feel like people worry about like, oh, well, it's not going to be fun. I'm not going to know what to do. But like that's when you learn what you like to do. And I think that so many people find themselves in those moments. And I highly recommend solo travel to everybody. But I feel a lot of people are also afraid of it. And they're afraid of it because they don't know, like they've never done it. Again, the whole fear aspect of it all. But I think it's so incredibly important to just, I think especially, being in our age group, as we get older, as people get kids, as people, get married, like it's going to be harder and harder to make plans with your friends. Like, so it's valuable to be able to be like, I don't like, you want to come? Okay, cool. If not, bye. Like I'm going still.
Well, that's kind of why in my position, a lot of my friends are already married and they have kids. So I've lost a lot of my travel companions along the way. But also like solo traveling has really allowed me to find a lot of characteristics about myself that I didn't know existed. But like it allows you to be comfortable with yourself. And I think that's very important when you're growing up, is trying to find that comfort within yourself. But I think we live in a society where a lot of people don't feel comfortable being alone. And I think they always feel like they need somebody to be there to have a good time. But let me tell you, I've done quite a lot of traveling, and I've done a lot of traveling with friends, which has been an awful. Like, I've had vacations that have been like turned out awful, and like people leave not being friends because you just don't travel well. And let me tell you something, like I went to Hawaii for my 30th birthday, and awful. It was like the worst vacation of my life. So my 31st birthday, I was like, I'm going to the Galapagos by myself.
Bye.
And everybody's like, why would you want to spend your birthday alone? I was like, because last year was so awful. I have to. But you know, the thing is I'm very comfortable with myself, and I'm somebody who I like to spend time alone, and I like to do a lot of things like self-care things. And to me, you know, I prioritize travel. And for me as a nurse, traveling is a de-stressor. So I use it as a way to really disconnect with my normal life. Because, you know, nursing is it's not fun and games. It's very stressful. So a way that I do kind of de-stress is travel. So I use it as like, it's really important to travel with the right people.
It is.
It does not work the way you want it to. So.
No, and I think it's about the compatibility of like the personalities, because like when you're alone with someone else like 24/7, and you're not like used to being with your friend for 4 days in a row, like things come out, you know, like, and it's not the same. I got super lucky on my backpacking trip with my best friend. Like, we've always gotten along very well, but we had never done an extensive long trip like that before together. And like, thankfully it did not affect our trip. And it was like, she's the perfect travel person to like for me. I remember we actually ran into these two girls in Germany at a hostel, and one of the girls was like in tears, and she's like, I just can't deal with her anymore. Like, I can't do it. I'm booking my flight back home tomorrow. Like, she was cutting her whole trip short.
I get it. I've been on vacations like that where I'm like, man, I would rather be home alone than right here, right now. But like, I also think too, because like I've done quite a lot of traveling with several friends, and some of my friends, you know, we traveled younger together. Just
all right, I think you're back. There you are.
I think, like I was saying, the older we get, we travel differently. So like a few years ago, a girl that I used to travel with a lot when I was younger, we just travel differently. We want different things, and we prioritize certain things when we travel. I'm very budget friendly on certain things. Well, on most things. There are some things that I prefer to splurge on if I'm going to. And I feel like sometimes people, you know, they want to splurge on other things, or they don't think certain things are necessary, and it can cause a lot of turmoil on a trip. So I don't know. I've found that a lot of times my solo trips are better than other trips.
Yeah. And
you're able to do what you want to do, you know.
Exactly. It's very freeing, and you feel like there's no like nobody that you have to ask permission to. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, hey, look at this. Do you like this? Oh no. And then all of a sudden you feel guilty for asking that, like, oh, did you want to go do that? Like, oh no, you didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, no, I'm not sorry. I want to go do that.
Or, you know what, I'm going to stop and have a coffee, and then maybe call it a day early. Like, I know everybody travels differently, and I like to jam packed a lot of things, but there's also times where I'm on vacation and it just doesn't go as planned. Like, you're tired or whatever the case may be. I know, when I went to Cusco, we were trying to just, you know, acclimate to, and it's just, you're tired, right? So there was one day where we had all these things planned, and I was like, you want to go back and take a nap? You know, and luckily I was with a friend that was like, but you know, it's just, everybody has different wants and needs when they travel, and it's, everybody's different when it comes to that. We all want different things. We all want to go and see different places, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, we have different,
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think that there's nothing wrong with it at all. So I think people should be embracing it more.
I agree.
So going to budget really quick, because you briefly mentioned it earlier. So talking about how I also travel on a budget, and I try to, I think that's one of the biggest things that hold people back. Oh, did I freeze on your end? Am I there?
No,
back?
Yeah, you were frozen.
I'll just dance until it works.
You're back though.
So what was I saying?
Back on budget.
Oh yeah. So on budget, I also travel on a budget. And so I know that one of the biggest things I feel, again, like I mentioned earlier, is that people will not travel because they think it's too expensive. And there are ways around that if you're willing to sacrifice like certain comforts. Like, and I think
so many ways around it. I have a laundry list.
Yeah, and it's crazy because people just don't know where to. I think the biggest thing is that people don't know where to start when it comes to like starting to travel.
Start at home. That's like my biggest tip to anybody. Affording to travel starts at home, and that comes to stop eating out. I used to I'd go out all the time on the weekends, spending a bunch of money on alcohol, and then you get food afterwards, like that all adds up. And I tell people, I'm like, yeah, those 3 days, those 3 nights that you go out every night, how much are you spending? Like that right there adds up. Or simply packing your lunch to work.
Yeah.
That saves a lot of money. Like people would ask me all the time, they're like, oh, you never like get lunch. You always have a lunch. I'm like, yeah, I have a trip I'm saving for. And then another one was coffee too. When I worked midnights every single day into work, I'd stop and get myself a Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And you're back.
I'm here.
Okay.
You're good.
So what was it? Oh, midnight. So I'd stop and get coffee every day. And I started realizing how much money I was spending every day on coffee. And then I started noticing all these girls at work, they'd stop and get a coffee in the morning, and then they get a midday coffee down at Starbucks. And they're like, how can you afford it? And I was like, well, one, I stopped eating out. I started packing my lunch, and I stopped getting coffee. And that right there is a plane ticket in a month. So, and people don't realize like how much they're spending on a weekly basis, because right now it's part of their budget, right? Like they budget for it. They know what they're buying every week. So they kind of plan that way. But I tell people, honestly, you're going. Am I still there?
Yeah, you're here. You're good.
So I just don't know. I think the biggest tip that I tell people is it starts at home. If you want to start traveling, it literally starts at home.
I love that.
And that's my biggest tip to anybody. Well, you start reevaluating your daily budget, because that right there, whatever you put towards your coffee every day, put it in a jar, and you'll start realizing how much money you spend. And I think it's hard to gather that, because we're such a almost cashless society where everything is on the card. And you don't realize how much you're spending. As if you had like actual cash, you realize, oh, my money is dwindling, Yeah. So I think people just don't put it into account how much they're actually spending on a weekly basis.
Absolutely. And I think that, also starting from home, one of the biggest things too, and I've made videos on this and such like that, and I know that you also do the same, is like really maximizing your credit card usage. Like if you're using your card and, the money that you're spending, being smart about it. First of all, like don't go out and get a card and spend money you don't have, but the money that you're spending every single day, whatever it might be on, and the necessities, whether you have to go, you have to make purchases every month, no matter what. If you funnel that through your card, like my credit card is a directly to my bank. So like I don't spend money I don't have. And then once I put it on my card. I just pay off my card at the end of the month, and I don't pay interest. and then I get points on these cards. And I know that you have some tips on this as well when it comes to choosing a card. But like those cards that you have travel points on, that's how I get my free flights. I haven't paid for a flight in a while, like because of that. And it's a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, it's free money.
Well, I that's what I tell people too. So my other tip is airline loyalty. So
Yeah.
I always tell people wherever your largest hub is, like in Detroit, ours is Delta. So I always tell people I have a Delta credit card. So any large purchase that I'm making anyways, I put it on my card. You're buying it anyways, so why not get those miles? But then on top of it, you get loyalty with this company, and I'm a medallion, so I get free upgrades, and there's other perks that go along with that. And then, I tell people, on top of that, Delta works with so many other companies. They work with hotels.com. So they have their own little section on hotels.com that actually gives you better deals. If you're a Delta, if you have Delta Sky Miles, you get better pricing. So case in point, another one is traveling in the off season. So this kind of goes hand in hand. I went to Greece back in February. Who goes to Greece in February? I do, because it's cheaper. And we decided to go to Santorini, and we stayed in a cave hotel for $50 a night.
Wait, a cave hotel?
Yep.
Ooh, a cave hotel.
Yeah. So like it's the main hotels that like most people stay in, and it's built in like the side of the walls, like the side of the islands.
Yeah.
And they like cave out rooms. It's like a huge thing in Santorini. These rooms go for like $400 or $500 a night peak season.
Wow.
So they were already discounted, heavily discounted, and with Delta they were even more discounted. So, and on top of it, I even got more miles because I used my Delta card. So it was like 3 times the miles if you book through their website. So, and people always ask me, they're like, how do you find all these deals? And I'm like, you have to put in the time and effort if you want to travel, and I always say too, I'm like, off-season travel is great. 1, you don't have all the tourists. 2, you have better pricing. Like, and I understand like you want to see it in peak season. I get it. There's a reason why people go to Santorini in the summer, but we had the island.
Froze again. Sorry guys for the freezing. This internet, whatever it might be, but there is a reason that people go there during the seasons. But I always tell people, even if there's like a general time that you want to travel, like if let's say you want to travel in April, like if you just have flexible dates, if you are able to have flexible dates and then you do a search for the dates that you want and then you look at the day or two before it or after it, that's where you can find hidden deals too, because they always want to fill up those planes on the days that aren't so popular. Not traveling on a Friday, not traveling on a Sunday, those like traveling on a Thursday night instead or whatever it might be. And doing it
odd hours, nobody will fly, late at night, but that's usually where you're going to find the better ticket,
Exactly. And just like I mentioned earlier, it's all about like what comforts are you okay with sacrificing? Are you like, do you stay in hostels when you go like to Europe and other countries?
I have.
Yeah. What do you think?
It all depends on the situation and what has a good deal. We did quite a lot of hostels. We did a hostel in Athens. In Santorini, we stayed in the Cave Hotel because it was a better deal. And I don't even think they had a hostel on the island, to be honest. In Turkey, we were looking at hostels, but with my Delta, I was able to get a hotel room cheaper than a hostel. So, I mean,
there you go. Yeah,
like a 12 bunk. It was like ranging, I think, $15 a night, and we ended up getting this hotel for $12 a night. You split it to 2 people. I mean, you can't beat it. So it ended up being cheaper. So I think you just have to find the time to find. I'm not opposed to hostels. I've done hostels quite a bit. We did hostels down in South America when we went to Peru. So I think it's just
it just depends.
Problem with it. I mean, there's a lot of hostels that are very nice, but there's also a lot of hostels that are not. I think you have to just pick and choose what type of hostel that you want. Now, I stayed in a hostel down in Huacachina in Peru, and I was just a little too old for it. Like, it just was not my scene.
Yeah.
Into the whole. Now, I was telling everybody that we were with, I was like, if I was like 10 years younger, this would be the spot. I would be with every single person at the pool partying up at like 4:00 in the morning, but not my thing anymore.
It's all about, and I tell people with hostels, because the American idea of hostels is like, they think of the movie. They go straight to the movie hostel, and they're like, horror movie. What? It doesn't even sound like a good word. Hostel. That's bad. So it's insane. But no, it's just like hotels. There are bad hotels and there are good hotels. They have reviews too. So it's like checking those reviews and checking out what kind of hostel you're going to, what kind of amenities they have, and what's going to fit your travel.
Going to say, because every hostel has a different feel. Because I've been in some hostels that are very quiet. You wouldn't even notice that, you're in a hostel, except for the fact that there's a bunk bed. But then, like, a lot of the hostels also offer private rooms too. So you but still have some sense of privacy. But I think hostels are nice too, because then it puts you in an environment where you are with other like-minded people, and then you're meeting new people, right? Like, you're putting yourself in a hostel with 10 other people, you're bound to strike up a conversation. So, and I think there's plus and minuses with a hostel, but that's like with anything really,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's also like an icebreaker. Like, if you're going to a country or somewhere where here in the US, a lot of people don't know that we have hostels in our cities. Like, cities have hostels here. Just in case you didn't know. It's usually just Europeans in there. I'm actually curious about
to be honest. There was one in Minneapolis or somewhere in Minnesota, and I was like, "Hey, we should stay in a hostel." She's like, "Wait, there's a hostel?"
People don't know.
I think it comes few and far between here in the U.S. I think it's a very foreign concept, because I think people just like their privacy here in the U.S. I think it's just a different concept.
But what I love about it is that you get to meet people from all different countries, and the people who are from other countries are so used to it that those are the people that you meet there. Like, if I went to a hostel in Portland and in Colorado, and both of them, like, there was like majority of people from other countries, so it was really cool to meet them. But when you meet those people, it's like you're also like making friends, and like now you have places, like I have met so many people where they're like, yeah, if you ever come to Germany, if you ever come to New Zealand, if you ever come to South Korea, you have a place to stay. I'm like, okay, cheap. There you go.
Yep.
There's my budget trip.
Exactly. You don't have to pay for accommodation, because accommodation is always the most expensive part.
Exactly. And I mean, if you just make friends with people in other countries, guess where you get to go?
Correct.
So I don't know, like, going to a hostel might be an investment in your future.
Yes. I think, like I said, hostels, they can have some negatives, have some positives, but I mean, most of my experiences have been positive. So I don't mind hostels. I really don't. Like I said, I think it all depends on the type of vacation that you're wanting to have, and, what kind of budget you're on. But like I said, sometimes a hostel isn't always the most budget friendly option. So correct. I think you just have to really look into it and figure out what's going to work best for you.
Look at all of your options and keep it flexible.
Because I also say too, like, it always depends where you want to stay. Like, if you want to stay in the city, things are going to be more expensive. So, I mean, it just kind of depends. So, and if that's the case, then hostel's usually the way to go, or like if you want to stay in the more touristy area, and it just all kind of depends what you want to spend your money on. And that's kind of like the beauty of travel. You can figure out where you want to put more money and where you want to save and how you want to travel. So
Yeah, it's just about narrowing down what kind of travel you want to do. And you can do a combination too. Like on a lot of the trips that I've done, like I'll stay in some hostels and then, I want my privacy for a night and I'll go and stay in a hotel or for a night or two. Like there's nothing telling you have to do one way or the other. It's very flexible. And I think another way, and this is a big tip for me to Americans, is that a lot of Americans, I think because we get so little vacation time here, like paid vacation time. In a lot of other countries, people get like multiple weeks of paid vacation and they're able to travel more. But I think that one of the things that we do is we like overbook ourselves on these trips that we go on. And we just like, we'll be like, okay, I need to do this, 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 and this, and this. And then you're like stressed out the entire time that you're traveling because you're like, oh, we're going to do this at 12. We're going to do this at 1. We're going to do this at 3. Like, and you're not enjoying it. Like, you're not stopping. You're not working at that point.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know though. Cause I feel like, how much vacation time do you get a year?
Well, now this is the first job that I got this job a year and a half ago. So this is the first job that I have had that I get paid vacation and I get 2 weeks. So before this, like, all those different trips that I was taking was, weekend trips or whatever it might be, wasn't necessarily paid. But yeah, now I get 2 weeks paid vacation, which is why I was able to take my 2-week trip before, because my trip in April got canceled. So I was just like, I'm gonna just take it now because I'm in the real estate industry during the day. That's my day job. And that is insane right now. It's just absolutely insane. And I was like, it's not going to get better because I'm in Florida for the rest of the year. Like, it's insane. So the snowbirds are coming down and everything. So I was like, I'm gonna just take it now, and I'm gonna just take it all at once. It's good.
You have to. I know, like my vacation time. So I make an X amount of hours every pay period. So we can get quite a lot of hours. So we don't go by days because we don't have a traditional 9 to 5. Monday through Friday. So, like I said, majority of the people can get some time off if they just schedule themselves just right. So
surprise
guest. I know, right? She wants to say hi. So I think okay, you're done. So I think for us in the medical field, it's a little different. So if you stack your time just right, and you can really get quite a lot of time off. And then, it's all dependent on the type of unit that you work on too, because each unit has like their own different like vacation policies. So like with me, I can take up to 3 weeks total at a time. So, it just kind of depends, where you're at, if there's coverage. So, because I also am a job where like, I can't just leave, I'm going to leave early for today. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. So, we don't have the luxury of like, getting holidays off or weekends. Like we have to work weekends, we have to work holidays. So, I think a lot of us in the medical field, we do really take advantage of our days off. So that's why I also highly encourage, just get out there, man. Take a weekend, de-stress.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it is de-stressing. That's what I think travel is. So do you have any last minute things that you want to bring up in regards to just, any tips, last minute tidbits that you want to give to everyone out there?
Honestly, just go out there and have a wonderful life. I think life is so short, and I think it's because the field that I work in, I've seen so many times, time and time again, that like life is really precious and life is very short. So why not live your life to the fullest and really just put yourself out there? Because nobody's going to talk about how much you worked when you die. Nobody's going to. So like if I were to die tomorrow, no one's going to be talking about how much I worked myself and this and that. They're going to talk about how, oh my gosh, she went on this like 3-week adventure to Peru and she trekked to this trek to Machu Picchu along the Salcantay. Like, they're going to remember certain things about my adventures that's how they'll know me, So I always tell people, just put yourself out there, really experience life, because if you don't, at one point you're going to be too old. You're going to not be able to do the things that you really want to do. And I always encourage some people too. I'm like, do it. Like, the younger people that I meet or that I work with, I'm like, travel now. Travel before you get married. Travel before you have kids. Travel before you settle down. Like, I'm 32 years old and I'm still not settled down, not married, no kids. And, that's taboo, it really is.
Yeah.
Like, people look at me and they're like, don't you want to settle down? And I'm like, don't you want to travel?
I just went, I've been to Peru.
But like, come on, I still have a lot of life to live. And, I know, like, once you get in that rut, like, I think a lot of my friends are like, well, we have this and we have that, and we have a mortgage. I'm like, yeah, so do I, but you still find time. Like, I just feel like, why not do it now while you're young? Really put yourself out there and,
Don't wait until retirement. I hear so many people say, yeah, I'm going to wait until retirement. When I have money, I'm going to have money then. And I'm like, no, like, first of all,
you may not make it till then. And I know because my friend's dad literally passed away like right after he retired. And her mom says, well, we had all these plans. And I was like, that's why you don't wait, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. You're not. And I've seen it so many times that young people, they think that there's a tomorrow and you're not necessarily guaranteed tomorrow. So live it,
Live it up. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, you work to live. You don't live to work. At the end of the day, you are making money so that you can enjoy your life. We are not put on this earth to just work, and then that's like where we're getting our pleasure from. Like, I mean, definitely do what you love.
There's a healthy balance, there is a healthy balance. Yeah. I mean, me and you are obviously, people that are displaying that. There's a healthy balance where you can work and play at the same time, So
work hard and play hard.
Yeah, you can have that balance, because trust me, I work really hard, and everything that I have, I work for. Like, people are like, oh, but you have a house and you have, I'm like, yeah, I do have a mortgage. I do have a car payment. I'm lucky that I don't have school debt because I put myself through community college. So like, there's other things that, I have saved along the way, and it's possible. You just have to find areas that you can cut to make it possible. So traveling and working, it's possible. You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to sell everything that you own to travel the world like a lot of people make it out to seem. Because I know, like, right now on YouTube, that's a huge thing, right? So I know there's a lot of people that watch those videos and they're like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to travel. Like, you have to quit your job. And I'm trying to tell people you don't have to. Like, it's possible that you can get out there, have adventures, see the world, and really have, a wonderful life if you really want to. So
yeah. Absolutely. It's all about that willpower. And that's my whole goal too, is that, I'm glad that you have like your specific vision. And that's why I wanted to have you on today, because I personally want to encourage young Americans to travel, because it's again, like we just said, like, it's not, tomorrow is not guaranteed. And we should not be with our mindset of working like, great, I'm a workaholic. Trust me, I work a lot, but I, want to make sure that I'm enjoying my life too, because and another big thing about experiences is that I don't remember what I got for Christmas last year, what I got for Christmas 5 years ago. I can tell you about every single trip that I've taken now. And those are the memories that are going to stick with you. And when you do retire, if you get to retirement, you're going to look back on your life and you're going to be like, wow, I didn't work away my life. I actually enjoyed it. And then you're going to be able to think about all those memories and go make more memories. But like, those are what you're going to have when you're older. Like, yeah, money will always be there. Money will always be there.
Yeah. It's just giving you a more fulfilled life. That's all.
Yeah.
And that's all we hope for, is just having, an enjoyable life. We want to enjoy it while we're here.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I completely agree. All right. So there is a question that I have started to ask all of the people that come onto my live. So I want to know what does travel mean to you, and how has it truly impacted your life? And maybe a couple of sentences.
Oh, wow. That's deep.
I know. I'm sorry.
What does travel mean to me? Well, I think that's kind of multifaceted. I think travel is just one aspect of who I am. I think travel has made me the person I am today.
Yeah.
Like, it's really impacted me. I think it's opened my eyes to so many things that I would have never known. And I think it's changed me for the better. Who I was over 10 years ago, not necessarily that I wasn't happy with that person, but who I've become today all be is all because of my life experiences.
Yep.
And those life experiences are specifically travel. You know, there's been times where like I've been in a situation where I just wanted to cry because I've been so overwhelmed. But like you learn things about yourself. And
Darn, why did it have to freeze in the middle?
oh no.
You said you learn things about yourself.
So travel has really made me learn a lot about myself, and it's really made me the person and the strong woman that I am today. And to be honest, I wouldn't be the outspoken, the bluntly honest person. Like I wouldn't be that person that you see today if it wasn't for travel. So honestly, like I'm so thankful that first trip to Europe really kind of like opened my eyes and made me realize that there's more of a world out there than my small little bubble here in Michigan. And it's made me realize that like you can be a bigger person and you can be a better person. You just got to put yourself out there.
I love that. That's a perfect answer. And I've loved the answers that I've gotten from that. So it's been really, really a treasure. So thank you for sharing that, Kayla. Thank you for joining today. For those of you who are watching, I do go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on my channel, The Traveling Lucie. It is always a pleasure to have these guests on and just talk about travel in some way, shape, or form with different topics and just getting the information out there because everybody has a different perspective a little bit. And it's great. And I'm so glad that I started this. Thanks, COVID. I appreciate
you. Positive thing of COVID.
So, I hope that you guys will join me again next week and see who my guest is next week. And thank you so much again, Kayla. Make sure you guys go check out her YouTube channel, The Wanderful Life of Kayla, if you didn't get that already. And follow her on Instagram as well at Kayla Reid. Thank you again for coming on, and I will see you guys next week.